Hi, I'm Greg Sadler. I'd like to thank you for watching my videos, and actually this video itself is something a little bit new for me. You notice I'm shooting this in a quite different backdrop, the city of Boston behind me. I'm shooting this one in part because I wanted to say thank you to some of the people that have been writing in with comments about the videos that I've put on YouTube so far. And some of the things that people have been saying are that they get a lot of use out of these videos, mainly philosophy videos, some literature, and eventually I'm going to do some religious studies videos and some new critical thinking videos as well. And some of these people are lifelong learners who are studying on their own outside of an academic institution. Others are people who are students, but they're enrolled in somebody else's, say, ethics class or intro to philosophy class, and they find that these videos on Plato or Aristotle or Descartes or whoever help them to understand what's going on in their class much better. Some of them are actually people who are using my videos to prepare for qualifying exams in other countries, educational institutions. So there's a lot of people getting quite a bit of use out of these videos, and I'm very happy to see that. A lot of people have been saying too that they enjoy them, and that's gratifying to find out as well. I enjoy creating them, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, why that is, but I'm happy that it goes both ways. So I've had a lot of people actually thanking me, not only in the channel feed itself, but also on particular videos. There's not a lot out there on some of these authors and thinkers. Or what's out there is fairly old and maybe not in the same sort of format. I've actually had a lot of people asking me to produce different videos, new series. Some people would like me to shoot some videos having to do with literature, and I'm considering doing something like that about the books that I love in particular. Maybe not as a philosopher, but just, and certainly not as a literary theorist, but just, telling you what I like about them. What was said that really struck me, I'd actually say touched me, was this. Somebody said, you take these topics seriously and you teach with great conviction and love. And I think that's maybe the best thing that anybody's ever said about the way that I teach. That I teach with not only great conviction, but love for the topic, for the sheer act of teaching and the learner. So that made me think a lot today, and that's why I wanted to shoot this video in particular. And so there's three things I want to say in response. One is that I do love teaching, and that's not something that I actually started with. I didn't love teaching at the beginning, quite frankly, but that's changed over time, and I think that had to do less with gaining new information and more with a change in perspective, and actually thinking a bit more about what my job was and the people that I was working with, and the value, why these texts are actually valuable, not just to me, but to them. I really like teaching this stuff, the sort of things that I'm putting on YouTube. I didn't always get the opportunity to do that. There's sometimes what we call teaching ghettos, where you're stuck just teaching this particular kind of class day in, day out, and you can't branch out and do anything else. And YouTube made that possible for me to do a lot more, which is kind of nice. But I really like teaching these great thinkers and the classic texts, some contemporary things, but mostly classic texts. The things that have to do with life, that give us more perspective, that introduce us to new ways of seeing things. I mean, when you read Plato and you really pay attention to what's going on there, it will change your life. It won't just change your thoughts about things, it will change the way that you perceive, the way that you understand your relationships with other people, the way that you see where your own life is going. And that's just one example. I mean, you could say that about Dostoevsky, you could say that about St. Anselm. There's so many other great thinkers that are classics for that reason, and I get to teach them. So in some ways, it's one of the best jobs around, because I get to sort of bask in and reflect some wisdom from these wonderful thinkers that we have. It's too bad, as a side note, it's too bad we don't actually have all the works of some of these thinkers. Apparently Aristotle wrote dialogues that rivaled Plato's for how well put together they were. It would be nice to have our hands on those, but we don't. So it's nice to get to teach the Aristotle that I do. I get energy from my students. And so when it's said that I teach with great conviction and love, I think that some of that is coming from the material. It's not coming from me per se. It's coming from what it is that I'm teaching, and I think some of it is actually coming from my audience, the people that I'm engaging with. I know that when I'm in a classroom and the discussion is going really well, and I can look out in the classroom and see that students are grasping what's going on, or I see a student struggling with something and we work our way through it bit by bit, and by the end maybe they don't know everything, maybe I don't even know everything, but we're better off than we were at the start of the class session. I get a lot of energy from that, and it's a lot like being on stage. After the class is over, I feel that same sort of tiredness, almost exhaustion that actors talk about after they do a performance. But it's not so much performing, it's more, this is kind of a new agey way of talking about it, and I don't really buy into a lot of that, but it's almost like channeling, You're giving voice to Plato, or to Thomas Aquinas, or to Thomas Hobbes, or whoever, and letting the students actually get to encounter them. And I think that I also do get some energy and some of that conviction from my own enthusiasm as a student, getting to go back to these texts over and over and over again and get more out of them each time. I'm teaching Plato's Republic next week, and I know reading through it, I found yet another thing that I didn't see the last time around, or the time before that, or going all the way back 20 years. So that's very exciting for me. So that's one thing. Another thing that I want to talk about is just YouTube itself. This is a great opportunity for me in particular. I get to teach a lot of things that I wouldn't ordinarily get to teach, and people get to watch it and gain some benefit from it. I mean, some of the things that I have are course lecture videos, but now I'm doing things on existentialism. I've never gotten to teach a class directly on existentialism as such, and even when I got to teach classes that had some of those components, they were stuck in the 16 or 15-week format, and you can only pack so much into the semester. With YouTube, if I want to shoot 40 videos, like I'm thinking about for the existentialism series, 40 hours of actual video, I can do that. If I wanted to shoot 120 hours, I could do that. I mean, I don't know if anyone would watch all of that, but certainly people would watch portions of it. And I get to decide that. So if I want to shoot a course sequence just dealing with one of the thinkers that I'm particularly interested in, St. Anselm, where would you get to teach a course on St. Anselm, just St. Anselm? You'd probably have to be in a graduate faculty somewhere, and then you might have 5 students attending the class. With this, I can put together and teach and assemble materials and get feedback from people for the things that I'm teaching as I'm doing it, as I'm developing these videos and as we're uploading them and editing them. And that's really amazing. I mean, just 10 years ago, we couldn't really do that. Back when I was a student, this wasn't even really thought of. When I was a undergraduate, I mean, not a graduate student. The other thing that I really like about YouTube is it offers me the chance to reach a a vast audience. Anybody who is interested in St. Anselm and starts Googling St. Anselm, maybe not just the ontological argument, but let's say St. Anselm and why God became man, or what is the will, or something like that. If I've got a video on that, it pops up, and then they can see it. And they can decide whether they want to watch it or not, and if they do watch it and they get bored, they can always leave. And if they like it, they stay and they comment and they ask for more. So this is a really great opportunity, which of course I didn't build. I'm not responsible for. We're just using the medium that's there, but I'm very thankful for it. And the last thing I want to talk about is sort of a little story, very short. I could tell a longer version some other time about something that happened in my career and why I developed the attitude towards education and students and doing this kind of beginning and intermediary level stuff. When I was a graduate student, I had the intention of becoming, one of these great researchers and scholars and getting a graduate position and teaching the people who would be, going out and becoming philosophy professors themselves, and that meant I would never really have to teach intro to philosophy again, or ethics, or critical thinking, or eventually world religions, or any of these things that we call survey classes. And why did I want to do that? Well, in part it was I wanted to teach the stuff that's really high level, because then I get to delve into what is Plato saying in this passage and how does it tie in with all these other works, and that's a lot of fun. And I do that in my scholarship. I go to conferences and talk with other Plato scholars about that, or talk with other Anselm scholars. But that's not where most students are. And you have to begin where people actually are. And I think that for a good portion of my early career as a professor, I didn't avoid them because I couldn't. But I wasn't as comfortable with teaching these survey classes, what we call service classes, not just survey classes, but service classes, where you're teaching people who have no intention of majoring in philosophy. They're core classes, where you have to figure out how to make this material click for them, how to reach them when they don't have any of the basic background. And at first I kind of resented that. And I think a lot of professors do, a lot of younger professors, especially right out of graduate school, when you're doing the high level, spending time with Plato or Hegel or whoever it is all the time. But that's our job. That's where we actually have some sort of public presence, where philosophy intersects with the world. I mean, Socrates didn't say to anybody, unless you've had the advanced classes, I really don't want to talk to you. He started with anybody, and he'd talk with them anywhere, on just about any occasion. That actually kind of irritated some of his followers. But if he's a model, then we ought to think about service classes a bit differently. And so I look at what I'm doing here as sort of the best of both worlds. I mean, if I want to teach something on, say, Nietzsche, and I want to look at the birth of tragedy, I get to talk about whatever I want to. And I can go into as much detail as I want, or not. But I find myself now, with the way I feel about doing this kind of work, I find myself kind of naturally thinking about, well, what does somebody need to know in order to make sense out of this? What do I need to call their attention to? What dots do I need to connect? And I get a lot out of that myself, in part because, and this is where I'm going to end, I think that you never really know a text or a thinker until you have to teach it to people who've never seen that before. It's easy to teach Plato to Plato scholars, and it's easy to teach Plato to upper level philosophy students. It's really hard to teach Plato to the people who say, Plato who? Who's this Socrates guy? What's going on here? But that's the more rewarding type of teaching ultimately. And so that's what I've been doing in these videos, and seems to be getting some sort of traction. So I'd like to say to all those people who were saying thanks to me, I'd like to say thanks to you. And thanks to you for watching.